Okay guys, tonight we will be learning about Napoleon Bonaparte. Cheer up, Napoleon. So to begin, we should ask the question, who was Napoleon Bonaparte? Well, the first thing you should know is that he was born Napoleon di Buonaparte. Sounds very Italian because he's from the small island of Corsica. That's right, he's not even French. Now you can see in this map that Corsica is an island in Europe. It is very close to Italy. It very much has an Italian culture to it. And throughout its history, it's been controlled by many different powerful countries. At the time of Napoleon's birth, it was controlled by the French. Now, right before Napoleon was born, there was an independence movement where some people on the island wanted to break free from France. Napoleon's parents decided to be loyal to the French, and because of this, they were rewarded and made nobles. Now, this doesn't mean they get some huge castle or, lots of money. Basically, the best thing they get is a chance for their children to be educated in the finest schools in France. So Napoleon will go to 2 military academies in France, and he's bullied. Not for being short, because all kids are short, and that's another myth of Napoleon that we'll talk about later. Instead, he is bullied for 3 separate reasons. Can you guess what these reasons are? The first is that his family was such a low-ranking noble family. So all of his classmates had families that were much older than his and had been nobles for much longer. So they were a higher ranking than his. The next is his skin color, okay? People in France are typically pretty pale, pretty white. Napoleon is from the Mediterranean, so he has more of an olivey skin complexion, okay? So he's more tan, so they make fun of him for being tan. And lastly, they make fun of him because his accent was Italian, it wasn't French. So even though he's speaking French, it doesn't sound the same. So his classmates make fun of him because of his accent, his skin color, and his family status. Since Napoleon's friends had families with higher standing, it was very easy for them to influence the academy for them to get higher positions. Since Napoleon didn't have that status, he chose the artillery. In artillery, you need skill. It doesn't really matter who you are or what name you have, you need talent. And this will come back later in Napoleon's career. Now, what is artillery? For lack of a better picture, it is this. It is when you take your cannon and you fire a cannonball at something. So for artillery purposes, you have to be good at math and science. You have to be able to aim. You have to calculate the trajectory. You have to calculate how much gunpowder to use. You have to consider the elevation of the cannon and your target, the distance of your target, okay? All of these things. So Napoleon was really good at this. It didn't matter that he was from a lower family because he was very skillful. Now, luckily, or perhaps unluckily for Napoleon, right as he was graduating from the military academy, the French Revolution took place. As you know, in the French Revolution, things changed very quickly. Napoleon was good at not being too loyal to either side of the revolution, and so in doing so, he was able to survive it and actually be promoted through the battlefield victories that he had. He started to become a hero in France when he freed a port in the south of France called Toulon from the British control. And this is when he really started to get noticed. Again, he's only in his mid-20s when he does this. After defeating the British, Napoleon put down an attempt to bring back the monarchy in France in 1795. Putting down this rebellion made him a rock star in France. Napoleon becomes so popular, he's given his own army. France only has 3 armies at the time, so he is given one of them. It's called the Army of Italy. This is when Napoleon di Buonaparte will become Napoleon Bonaparte. Now, he goes to Italy to fight the Austrians because Austria controls northern Italy. It makes sense to drop the Italian-sounding last name of Napoleon, okay? Now, this is a propaganda picture by Jacques-Louis David. Look at this and tell me, how does David make Napoleon look like a hero? I bet you never knew how Napoleon crossed those Alps so quickly. Now, sadly, he didn't cross the Alps on a motorcycle or even a white horse. Probably it looked like this. Notice this was painted after Napoleon's death, so people weren't afraid of Napoleon getting revenge by not making him look like a hero. Napoleon is so successful in Italy that he has given another army to go down and attack Egypt. Egypt is a British colony, and the French are hopeful that this will disrupt the English economy. Now, Napoleon gives France hope, so he is their hero. He goes down to Egypt, he attacks the people leading Egypt, he does disrupt the British economy, and he comes back with the Rosetta Stone, a scientific discovery that will allow us to translate Egyptian hieroglyphics. He actually takes with him on his invasion scientists, which you don't really hear a lot about during invasions at this time. Okay, this is his big battle, the Battle of the Pyramids, and a true story. The pyramids were not in sight, but it makes for a good story. When Napoleon comes back, he sides with two political leaders called Roger Ducos and Abbé Sieyès, and they overthrow the government in what's called a coup d'etat. By overthrowing the government, they're establishing a new government called a consulate. This also means that the French Revolution is officially over in 1799. They call their government the consulate because this is the ancient Roman government during the Republic. This new French consulate just sounded nice. That's it. You have three people in charge. Eventually, Napoleon becomes the most powerful because of his military standing, and he becomes first consul and then later consul for life, which sounds a lot like king. In response to an alleged rebellion in France, Napoleon polls the French and then proclaims himself Emperor of the French. He does this with something like 99% of the votes supporting him, which sounds suspicious. But how is this title different from Emperor of France? Why does Emperor of the French sound better? This is another Jacques-Louis David masterpiece. It's a major painting, and it shows Napoleon crowning his wife, the Empress of the French. Now, this event really happened. However, the emphasis really wasn't on his wife, it was on Napoleon. He invited the Pope to crown him emperor. And then at the moment when the Pope got up to do this, Napoleon stood up and took the crown from the Pope and crowned himself emperor, basically saying, I'm more powerful than you are. Now, this is another propaganda piece by Jacques-Louis David, okay? I want you to look carefully in this and see, how does this make Napoleon look like a hero? When asked at the end of Napoleon's life what he would be remembered for, he said, it's not for my 25 victories in battle, it is instead for my civil code. So this is the keystone of his reform movement in France. Before this, the law code of France was regional, so there were 300 separate law codes all over France. After this, there's one law code. Ladies, you're not going to like this. He prized order above all things, so he gave men all power within the marriage because he believed if a family was orderly, then a street would be orderly, a neighborhood would be orderly, a village, and then a city, and then a country. He also formally ends feudalism. He ended seigneurial dues. He did not allow serfdom to come back. So in this, he is creating some equality before the law for all people in the society. He also guarantees property rights. So this is really big when you think back to John Locke, okay, life, liberty, and property. So you do see some Enlightenment elements here, even if he isn't all that fair between men and women. Napoleon makes some huge changes for France, and I like to look at these before we look at him on the battlefield. The first of these is he makes the first public education system. So you can see that he values education because education is what made him so powerful. And then he furthers this by creating the University of Paris. On the financial side, he creates the Bank of France, which is similar to the Bank of England, and he does this to manage taxes and debts. Obviously, France needs a lot of help in this department. And then he opened government jobs to men of talent, not their last name. Remember, as we saw in school, the reason why he advanced through school and was promoted was because of his skill in the artillery. So he will do the same thing when he's looking for people to work in his government. Adam Smith would love this. He improves bridges and roads and canals to allow people to trade more easily and to travel more easily. Now, in a move that would make religious people happy, he brings back the Catholic Church. It's no longer the official church of France, but now the church can meet again, and this whole cult of reason of the French Revolution goes away forever. Now, this will benefit Napoleon because he pays the salaries of the priests. So if he needs them to say something in church on Sunday morning, they will all say it. So this will definitely benefit Napoleon. In keeping with this, he guarantees religious freedom for all religions, not just Christians or even Protestant Christians, okay, but also Jews and other non-Christians. And in a very popular move, he abolished the revolutionary calendar. So we're back to 12 months of normal names and 7-day weeks and normal time once again. So based on what you've learned tonight, would you say that Napoleon is a friend or an enemy of the Enlightenment? Be sure to have reasons why. Good night.